Hello everyone. Before we start the video, let's know about Upptalk. Upptalk is a live, interactive platform for software training, furnishing robust personalities who could take on universal business platforms. In this tutorial video, we are going to discuss Workday Reporting. Let's know about Workday Reporting briefly. Workday Reporting passes the range of financial reporting, real-time, user-defined questions provide the understanding wherever and whenever you need it. With all the data in the Workday Reporting, reports can be reduced in graphical or tabular form for download and display. The topics we will cover in this video are: calculated fields, create calculated field, increment, decrement, search results, and finally calculated field. To know more about the latest and trending technologies, watch other videos on our Upptalk channel. Please do like, share, and subscribe to the channel to know more about new technologies. This video will be covered by Ms. Preethi. Now, let's not wait further and get started.
Okay, so let's start with the session. Next 4 days we'll be rigorously covering all these calculated fields logic in Workday, and they form a basis. Usually we tend to know how to build reports, but when we get stuck with calculated fields, I feel they are the uh, what do we say, backbone of the entire reporting configuration. And it's not just reporting configuration. If you anytime move above and beyond building reports and even move to building alerts, or for that matter conditional rules, EIBs, they always come handy. So I feel if someone has aced how to build calculated fields, 60% of the work is done in Workday when it comes to report build. So yeah. And I personally love to work on these kind of things, because I feel if someone is good at logical reasoning, they can very well grasp this thing very easily. So yeah.
Okay.
Today's session is all about date-based calculated fields. In Workday, we usually segregate calculated fields as date, text, and then logical reasoning like true and false condition. And then the last one is dealing with instance fields. So I have split the 4-day session as per that. Before I get into the date specifics, let's first see what exactly you can do in Workday with calculated fields. So, since you have seen that the report that I built on Friday, we only tend to use what do we call as delivered fields. So Workday has its own set of delivered fields delivered for each of the business object, correct? And
Yeah.
that has a pre-stored data in it. But many a times there is a set of or a subset of data that you want to pull on the report, but you know that it's there in Workday, but maybe it's not in the same format as your client wants. Maybe the client wants only a subset of the data. So suppose there is a date and time. There's a field, delivered field, which is showing both date and time, but the client is saying, I'm not concerned with time, I only want to pull the dates. So for that, your delivered field is not going to work, but Workday does give you an option to apply certain logic and extract those instances or build those instances and do the needful. So that's when calculated fields come into picture. When you cannot achieve something via delivered field, but the delivered field value has stored that data not in the same format as your client needs, then usually we go with calculated fields in Workday. Okay, and some of the calculations you can see is listed here, like date calculations. You might want to build a date. You might want to, maybe the date would be a static date like 1st of December 2022. Now in Workday, there's no delivered field that says 1st of December 2022, but maybe your report is always running based on that and your client wants to hard code it. So you can build a date very well. So you can do those kind. You can do arithmetic calculations. Maybe you want to add two numerical fields. Maybe you want to add the salary plus allowance. So you can do those kind of things. You can convert currencies. Maybe the client wants everything to be shown in USD, but since it's a I will say a multinational company, for different employees, the salary data might be stored in euros, or for that matter, Indian currency, rupees, INR, and things of those sort. So you can convert all of them into USD for a uniform reporting structure. Then maybe you are building a report on a primary business object and you need a field which is built on a secondary business object. I know we know that we can very easily bring that secondary business object field by using the secondary business object as an object in your report, but many a times there are few reports which don't let you do that. We'll see when we jump onto building matrix and trended report. So you might want to bring that field on the primary business object. In those instances, we go with the help of lookup related value, aggregate related instance. You can do that. You can also sum a particular subset of data. Maybe you want to find all the female employees in an organization. You want to find the sum of that. You can do those kind of calculations using calculated fields in Workday. So there is a lot. Maybe you want to build a logic that says yes and no based on a particular conditions. Like if the gender is male, return me the value M. If the gender is female, return me the value F. So like that. So you can build those kind of calculations as well in Workday. So that's about calculated fields. You can perform all set of calculations. We are today sticking only to date calculations and formatting. So yeah, today's session is going to the next 60 minutes or so. We'll be spending on that. Now, there is one thing that we should be understanding. There are different kinds. Basically, apart from different kinds of calculations, there are different types of calculated fields, which you can see here. Global. Now, global is a calculated, and you really need to understand this because calculated fields are very much business object driven. So you really need to understand what each of these the first three at least, what each of these means. So global are those calculated fields which are not built on any business specific business object, which means they are built on global business object, which means if I'm building a report with worker as a business object, even if the field is not built on worker but it's built on global, I can use it, I can pull it on worker bo. If I'm building a report built on journal line as a business object, the same field which I have pulled on worker, which was built off the global bo, can be pulled on journal line as well. And Workday provides
So,
a very good,
Tikni,
yeah.
what's the global BO means?
A global BO means irrespective of which BO you are using in your report, if a particular calculated field or a field is built of global business object, you can pull that field irrespective. It's not that that field has to be built of worker business object, or it has to be built on expense reports, or it has to be built on business process transaction to be pulled on that report. If it's built on global, it's like a Workday wide field that can be used across any report. And I'll tell you what kind of fields those are. Those are fields like today, a date field like today. If you want to pull what is today's date in a report, that's a global field. Irrespective if your report is built on worker as a business object, or if it is built on what do you call as uh, journal line, you can pull that today date. It because it's built on global, right? And
Okay.
then many a times these text fields like parenthesis, comma, maybe you want to add these fields in a text field, right? You want to put something under a bracket and so on. So that way it's a global field. Irrespective of which BO you're using in a report, you can very easily pull that field. You don't have to do LRV. You don't have to think which particular BO I should be pulling to pull this field. They are multi-BO fields. You can use these fields irrespective if it's a finance BO, if it's a HCM BO, it's a student related BO. Okay. So
Okay.
that's about global fields. I'll show you when I'm building text fields, we look at them. Okay, not today, but
Okay.
yeah, when we are building text fields.
Okay.
Then comes system-wide fields. Now in Workday, there are two ways you can create calculated fields. When I'll be building a matrix report that day, I will show you how to create calculated fields from the report. And today I will show you how to create system-wide. The ones that we'll be creating today or for the next 4 days, they are all system-wide calculated fields. Now, system-wide calculated fields are primarily those fields which even if you have built and you have built it to be system wide, a third person or a second person can also use it in the report if it's on the same BO. So suppose you have built a field on worker BO, okay, and you have built that field on worker BO and someone else is creating a report on worker BO, okay, but and they found your field to be useful. That's like a field that maybe you're pulling a particular level of hierarchy, cost, maybe second level of cost center hierarchy, okay. and you want to and that's a field maybe every other report will need, because it's a very important field for your client. Okay, so everyone finding it useful, the until unless anyone and everyone who's building the report on the same BO on which your system wide field is built, they can pull it. That way you're not restricting your field to be only for your use. You are letting other people leverage that field. Rather, you can also leverage that field in your other reports. If you're building other reports on worker view and you again want to use that cost center hierarchy field, you can pull that field. Understood? What exactly do
Yeah.
we mean by system wide?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Then comes report specific calculated fields. Now this is where you don't want that field to be systemized. It's just the opposite. Rather, if you if you're yourself building a second report, you cannot pull this field in that report, because this report is only specific to that what do you say, it's only specific to that report. Only and only that report you can pull this field, nothing beyond that. But there, it's not like it's a hard code rule. There is a task in Workday which says maintain reports, sorry, convert calculated fields. You can use that task and you can convert report specific calculated fields into system wide calculated fields. If you have realized that by mistake, hey, I made it a report specific but I have to use it time and again, then you can very well use the task called convert calculated fields, and you can mention the report name, you can mention the what all fields you want to convert, and it will be very easily done by Workday. Okay,
Okay.
now there is something called as maintain calculated fields report. It's like a one-stop shop for all calculated fields built in Workday, all system-wide calculated fields for mentioning. And suppose you don't want to go back again and again in the tenant and type the name of the field, because I'll show you searching calculated fields in Workday is a pain, and I'll show you why. So you can use this particular report and it will show you the list of the fields, and there will be user interactive buttons, delete, edit, all those buttons. So you can access the field and you can start editing it from there itself, rather than finding that field and then editing it from that action. Okay, so
Okay.
these are the ways one can work on calculated fields. Now let's get into the tenant and I'll show you a very simple calculated field. Oh, sorry. And what are the steps to create a calculated field. Yeah. So this is where and the name of the task. If and I'm just remember the next 4 days are all about system-wide calculated fields. When we'll be talking about trending reports or matrix report, I'll show you how to create report specific. But today, whatever I'll show you, it's just a way to create system-wide calculated fields. Okay. So
Okay.
the way to create calculated field is called create calculated field. I don't type the entire thing because Workday is the AI is pretty strong enough to identify the task. So this is where you type the task. It's called create calculated field. This is one way to do it and the most commonly used. If you already want to what do we say? If you already want to edit an already created calculated field, the task for that is maintain calculated fields. So this is the one you will use if you're trying to edit a report specific cal field, and this is the one which you will use if you want to edit a what do you call as a system wide calculated field. So
Yeah.
let me open this and show you what I was talking about exactly. Hmm. That's what I hate about this remote server. It's too slow to work on.
So, Preeti, like coming to this system-wide calculated fields, is that
These
that
are all domain based. The access to the task, who has access to what task, is all domain based. This
okay?
create calculated field is tied to a security domain. If you have a report writer role and the integration person has a different security group, and both the security groups have the access on that domain to edit this task, to use this task, anyone can do it. So it's not something delivered by Workday. Workday has guidelines who should be able to do it. Even functional people do calculated fields because they tend to use it in their business processes. They also use calculated fields heavily. So usually it's usually all the people with implementer access. who have this particular kind of access. So yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's taking a while. Meanwhile, I want to explain you the dynamics, how to create calculated fields. So there are three specific things that you will see while creating a calculated fields. One is the field name. Uh, every company has its standard of naming a report and a field. Your company might be also having. So always follow that particular standard. I usually follow CR, what I'm trying to achieve. Maybe I'm trying to achieve a higher date month. I'm just trying to pull the month from the higher date. And maybe the function that I'm using is format date. So I usually tend to type it like that, but confirm with your organization, have they prescribed any standard, or is it that you guys follow your own naming convention? But it's always good to put a CR, because that says that it's a custom report calculated field. And if you want to add your initials, just to know that, hey, I have built this, you can do that. So that way you can add your initials as well. Then comes business object. Now, this is a very important thing to understand. You have to assess which business object you're going to build this field on. Usually, it's the business object on which you have built the report on, and which you are trying to pull this field. So if someone is saying that give me the month of the hire date of the worker, it's very well understood that I have to bring this field somehow on the worker. If hire date is already available in worker, great. I can clearly build this field on worker and do the needful. Maybe hire date is not built on worker. Maybe it's built on some other BO. Maybe it's built on a BO called employee. But I want to pull it on worker business object. Then we will have to do some different kind of. Maybe there is multiple hierarchy. And it's important to understand, it's not always that to achieve an end result of a field, only one kind of calculation is needed. Many a times there will be nested hierarchies. Maybe you first do a format date, then you do a lookup related value, and then you get the final output. So it's always important to understand what is the sequence of calculated fields that will help me get the desired output. Okay. So it's
Okay.
very important to understand those kind of things. So business object it plays the most important role. You have to again do a reverse engineering. First, see on which particular business object your client is asking for that field, and they will ask questions like, hey, can I see the name of the benefit plan in this format? So you know that my business object has to be benefit plan, because they want to look at the name of the benefit plan in a particular format. So you have to just figure out, is there a benefit plan name field delivered by Workday? What is the format available? Is the client fine with that format, or do I need to tweak the format, and things of those sort. So assess those kind of things, and then go ahead and see if you need a calculated field for that or not. Then comes your function. So let me just simply type here action event. So this is also a business object here. Now comes function. This is where we determine what kind of calculation I have to perform. Do I have to aggregate related? Do I have to build a date? Do I have to concatenate text? And I will be walking you through each and every of them in the next 4 days. You will be looking at each of them in the next 4 days. Some, if you can see, are will be covered today, like build date we'll be talking about today, date constant we'll be talking about today, format date we'll be talking about today. So date ones we'll be talking about today, and tomorrow text. So this is what I'm going to teach you, when to use each of these functions and how to use each of these functions. Okay.
Okay. So these are the only functions which we
Yeah,
got.
these are the only functions. If you are unable to achieve your desired output using these functions, means it's not possible in Workday. But
Okay.
these are the only functions. These are the only set of calculations you can do in Workday using for to build a calculated field. But these are pretty, I will say, enough in number. They are pretty self-independent on their own. You really don't need to. We really don't have to think. Maybe many a times we have to build a lot of hierarchies and everything, but usually we tend to achieve. The only place we get stuck at is when we have to link to business objects. Many a time we aren't able to do that. Maybe because the business objects are just not related, so that field cannot be pulled into the report. Though
Okay.
that's when we go and tell the client that, hey, it's not possible. Maybe you will have to build a separate report, and you'll have to compare things like that. Okay.
Okay.
So this is about how do we create calculated fields. Now let's talk about our first calculated field function, which is format date. So today we'll be talking about format date function. I'm going to stay here because I'll be using the same page, but let me first explain you what does format date does. So suppose format date is basically, Workday has its own kind of date fields, right? For every business object, you have hire date. It's basically the date on which an employee was hired. You have someone's birth date. Every employee has its own birth date stored in Workday. Then you have a effective date. Effective date of a business process transaction. Basically, that is the day on which this business process transaction will become effective from. So, like if there is a salary change happening, and that the effective date of that is suppose 1st of May, even though the business process has been completed today or the formalities have been completed, but for that person, the new salary will become effective from 1st of May. That's how payroll will process their data. So that's about effective date. But many a times we don't have to use that exact date field in our report. We will have to tweak it in a way. Maybe we want to pull only the month of the hire date. Maybe we want to see people who have their birthday this month. So maybe we only want to extract the month from people's date of birth that way. Or maybe we want to see the head count of head count, or maybe we want to see hire count by quarter. So maybe we have to format the hire date by in a quarterly format. So whenever you are changing, so in Workday, the date format is usually month, day, year. That's how it is. Okay. Let me open a Word doc and I'll work. Yeah. Yeah. So suppose their format is always first month, because they always go by the US rule, MMDD, YYYY. For you, and many a times they also tend to add what do we call as time aspects to it. Maybe minutes, hours, everything will show up. So this space, then you will see the hour details, then you will see the minutes details, and then you will see the seconds details. So depends how each of the dates are configured. Okay. But for me, maybe my requirement is not to pull the exact same format. Maybe I only want to show the year of a particular date. So suppose if someone was hired, I just want to extract in which year they were hired, right? But Workday is going to show it as their month, day, year, everything, right? So in these kind of situations, when I have to only pull the year, I will use the format date. If there is an existing date field delivered by Workday, and I'm only extracting maybe just the quarter, a day, month, or a year, or maybe the hours, anything, any one particular date component that you're trying to format that entire date into, you will use the format date function. So let me build a quick field with you on this, which happens to be your format hire date. That's what we are going to build here. So what we are going to do here is we are going to format the hire date of a worker in what do we call as year quarter. That's how I want to see. So since hire date is built of worker business object, of course it's available on employee as well. But right now I'm just simply pulling the worker business object, and I'm going to select the function to be format date. So I'll just type it here. So you can format a lot of other things as well. Right now I'm just concerned with this. So I click on OK. Once I click on OK, I'm taken to a different window. Now this window will look different for different kind of calculations. It's not going to be uniform, but these two tabs will always be uniform. The calculation window will be very different. You will always have additional info. Additional info is maybe you want to describe what this particular field is doing. We really don't tend to maintain it that way. If you want to categorize it, suppose this field is being used only for HCM, you can create your own category and put it under that category. Authorize usage. If you leave it to default areas, everyone can use it. Okay. If you want to restrict it to only people who have access to benefits eligibility domain, only those people will be able to access it. So that way you can describe that should my field be available to anyone. If you leave it to, if you want only report writers to use this field, you don't want functional people or integration people having access to it, you can restrict it to that. Okay. Intermediate calculation. Maybe this will never be a final field in any of the report. You're getting it? You will never use it as a final output. You will only use it in your hierarchical calculation. Then you will make it as intermediate. But right now we don't have such need. Do not use. Many a times fields become deprecated.
Sorry, I'm sorry.
No.
Can you just give some example of intermediate calculation? I did not catch
I
it.
will. When we will be building these evaluate expression, you will yourself understand. Okay, I'll make that true and false as intermediate and then we will talk about it. So
Okay.
today I picked up the simplest of things for you to understand the basics of calculated fields, but yeah, as we'll move,
Okay.
we'll cover each of these. Okay,
Okay.
so yeah. Then comes do not use. So usually most of there will be a plethora of fields, like tens or thousands of fields stored in a system, right? Because everyone keeps hit and trial is done. Everyone has their own things to maintain. But many a times Workday deprecates lot of work. Maybe the hire date becomes a deprecated field. They push the upgrade and they replace the hire date with a new hire date field. So this field will become a deprecated field. But in order to ensure that no one is using it in the report, just make it as a do not use item. That way, this field will not be shown to anyone for future use. So that's how you
Okay.
mark a field as DNU. Okay. Let's come back to our real game, which happens to be the calculation. So calculation for format date looks like this: date field. First, you have to mention which particular date field you are trying to, what do you say? You are trying to format here. I'm trying to format a workday delivered field here. So I really don't need to follow create calculated fields. Can you see global fields, which I just spoke about? Now,
Yes.
these
Yeah.
are the fields which I'll show you. They are not built on work or BO, but still they are coming for me to use. So if you'll click on these three dots, firstly,
Mm-hmm.
this denote what type of field it is. We have already spoken about it in our for week 1 session. But if you click on the three dots over here, this will say that the business object is global, which immediately denotes that even if the field is not built on Worker BO, it's available for you to be used on Worker BO. That's what global field does. Okay,
Okay.
and you can see that it's a calculated field. It also says that it's not a workday delivered field. It's a calculated field of this particular calculation. Okay, and it's a date field. This particular sign here is denoting that it's a date
Great.
field.
Yeah.
Okay, that someone has been kind enough to enter a description as well. Many a times this particular tab for calculated fields is empty. It only shows for workday delivered field, but someone has been really kind enough to enter it here. Okay,
Okay. Cool.
so
Yeah.
this is about global fields, what I was trying to explain. For me, hire date is not a global field. I know it's built off. You can also build calculated fields from here itself. If you feel that I'm not being able to find a hire date workday delivered field, but you know how to create a hire date which will be helpful for you, you can start creating calculations from here as well. So you can access the task, create calculated field from here as well. Okay,
Okay.
so now let's simply type hire date and see what all fields come up here. Only those fields which are either global or built on worker will come up. So you can see there's so many fields related to hire date. There is hire date plus 90 days. Someone might have needed 90 days after the hire date. Maybe their probation period is for 90 days. So they want to see whose probation is getting closed or anything of that sort, whose probation is approaching. So that's why, see, someone has built a calculated field to find the 90th day from the hire date. There are so many uh, the CF thing denotes clearly that someone has built their own calculated field. First day of hire date and all those kind of things are all what do we say as uh, calculated fields. But I simply want to use the workday delivered field. Here, I'm just going to pick up that. So a good thing once they give you access to tenant, and once maybe I've covered 2 to 3 different kind of functions today, you go and explore those kind of functions.
Yeah.
Use the
Yeah.
maintain calculated field task and filter on all those format dates ones and everything that you have learned so that you also get a hands on that. Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
My format here is I want to show it to be as year and quarter. You can see there are so many formats you can use for your hire date, right? You can convert your hire date just into a year. So suppose your hire date into your organization was 1st of June 2016. If I will say it to be year, it will only give me 2016. Okay. If your hire date was 1st of June 2016, if I say it to be quarter, it will give me second quarter of the year. Okay, because I'm falling in the second
Okay.
quarter, right? If I'll say month,
Okay.
it will give me June because my month of my hire date was June. If I say day, it's going to give me 1 because I was hired on the first day of the month. Day of the week, if I was hired on a Friday, it's going to show up as Friday. Year, quarter. Now, what if my client wants to see the year and the quarter in which I was hired? So if my, uh, there is a notepad that I opened. Yeah, here it is. Yeah. So let me just show you here. 1st of June 2016 is a hire date. Now year quarter will give me the format here will be 2016 and the quarter here will show up as either they I'm forgetting, maybe Workday will return it to be Q2, Q3, or maybe they just say 2. Okay, I'm unable to find it, but maybe you can just build one such field and you can put it on a report and test how it basically, but usually I guess it's this 2016 hyphen Q2. That's how it's going to show it to be. Okay. So this is the format of the, my client is interested in looking at year quarter. So I'm just gonna select this particular format, year quarter here, and I'm gonna click on OK. And I'm done with the field. This is how I build a format date field. From here, you can create another calculation. Maybe if you want to create one more calculated field here, you can access it very well from here. Okay. Yeah, now if you use this field, all the workers who are in your report, their hire date will show up as year quarter. The year in which they were hired, the quarter in which they were hired. Okay.
Okay.
If you use this field, then year quarter. But if you're simply using the Workday delivered hire date field, no. It's going to show you this particular format that I showed you here. Month, date, year. Okay. No, we have to. It's a mandatory field because you're formatting the date, right? The reason you're creating this calculated field is because you want the date to be formatted into something else, right?
Okay.
Yeah, my next thing here, so let's move to our next kind of calculation, which is called as increment or decrement date. Now this particular calculation is if you want to add or subtract a particular seconds, minutes, hours, days, months, or years from a particular date field, that is when you use increment or what do you say, or decrement date. So it's basically increasing or decreasing the date value by either a year, by either a month, by either some days, by either some milliseconds, by either some hours, and so on. So suppose there is something called as in finance, you must have seen there are customers, right? For every financial, you must have seen there is an object called customer, and every customer has a credit verification date for them, right? And I want to see when does the credit verification date gets expired. Usually credit verification date for a customer expires after a year. So I want to build a report and I want to see for all the customers that I have in the system, when is their credit verification is getting expired. And the rule for my organization is that from the credit verification date plus 1 year will be their expiry. Okay. So I want to find their credit verification renewal date. So basically it's 1 year from now, you have to renew your credit verification. That's how it is. Okay. So now I will show you how to do that. I'm not going to again type the create calculated field. I can build the calculation from here itself. So, but still let me here create calculated field. So now I know that my credit verification date is basically what do you say as built on customer as a BO, right? So I know my business object. If you don't know it, I'll show you there is a rule of thumb that I follow to get all these kind of details. Okay. So let me just duplicate the tab. So whenever you know that there is a delivered field in Workday, okay, but you don't know which business object it is in Workday. Okay, maybe your functional person has told you that, hey, there is a delivered field in Workday as credit verification date, but they don't know beyond that, which BO and all. Just type that field over here in the search bar, and you can see it's automatically showing a list of. Now, I'm not concerned with template, model, column, and all those things. I'm only concerned with report field. So I will see what are the two credit verification date. One is called on customer credit change abstract, the date the customer credit was or will be verified. Okay, for a customer credit change. I'm not concerned with any change. So maybe this is not the appropriate BO for me. The other one is built on customer only. Returns the date the customer credit was or will be verified. Okay. So I'm concerned with this particular date. So I now clearly know that my field has to be built on customer BO. Okay.
Yeah.
So I go over here and I create use this task create calculated field. I'm sorry for the last hiccup. name your calculated fields with CF and not CR. CR is for custom report. CF is for calculated fields. Okay.
Okay.
I will name the field for its purpose. It's called credit verification renewal date. So that's what I'll call as. And yeah, so then also use the same particular naming convention. Okay.
Okay.
So now my BO, I have understood which business object to use. My business object has to be customer. You will see a lot of them here. I'm only concerned with the first one, which happens to be customer. My function here is now increment or decrement date. Since I'm trying to add 1 year to my date, I will be using I'm not trying to change the format, nothing. I just want to see 1 year from now, what will be the credit verification date for them. So this will be my function, increment or decrement. I click on OK and I will see. If you can see now, the calculation page is looking completely different from format date, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like I said, every particular calculation, this page will be different based on what calculation you're using. Now
Okay.
here also, they are asking you to mention the date field. Which date field do you want to increase or decrease? Okay. So I know that I want to increase credit verification date. So I'm just going to simply pull it here. I'm going to type the name of that field. Why is it not coming? This is strange. Let me just type credit date. Oh, maybe the customer BO that I have used is wrong. There were two, right?
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, that's why. So that can also happen. You have to verify. Let me use the second one that was there. Maybe this is the one. So this is a learning lesson. If you are trying to pull a field and it's not built on the BO that you have selected, it's not going to pop up here unless it's a global field.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was using the wrong field. So there is something called as credit verification date. What my client wants is to see a year after that particular verification. Okay. So a year from now, when will this particular this customer will need to renew its credit. Okay. So I want to add a year, right? Because I want from today, 1 year from the credit verification date. So all I want to do is I want to add a year. If they would have said maybe their credit renewal happens every 6 months from the credit verification date, then I would have to add 6 months over here. Then I would have used the month tab. Or if they would have said that their credit verification happens every 28 days from the credit verification date, then I would have added days here. So you're understanding? And suppose I can also mention 365 days here, right? Because a year is equal to 360. But why to go that route? If I have a year tab to mention a year here, then why to go that route? Now I
Yeah.
want number 1 to come up here. Always remember this now. These numbers like 1, 2, 3, alphabets like A, B, C, or these symbols like brackets, greater than, less than, dollar sign, they are all global fields in Workday. Workday doesn't really supply them to be on a specific business object. These fields are available for everyone to use irrespective of the BO. So I know that 1 is a global field. I'm going to just simply click. So whenever you're trying to pull these kind of fields in Workday, these brackets, the dollar signs, the percentage signs, these single letters like A, B, C, or words like yes or no. These are all global fields, or digits like 100, 200. Just check if they are available very well. If they're not, I'll show you how to create them as well. Okay. So
Okay.
automatically this defaulted the global field to be numeric. Ideally, if this would have not been a numeric calculation I would have been doing, it would have shown me both. Do you want to see alphabetical fields? Do you want to see text fields? But right now, since I'm doing a numeric calculation here, it automatically defaulted it to numeric. And over here, if you can see, all the digits are here. Some are delivered by Workday. Some people have configured for themselves. I'll show you how to do that. It's called, what do you say as, I'll show you how to build these kind of numbers. So I just want to add, I don't want to subtract. If I would have to subtract, I would have selected -1, right? I only want to add 1 year. So in the year section, I'm just selecting 1 and that's done. All this is all. Always and always, whenever you're playing with number fields or date fields, please select return blank date on error. This will, what will happen is that if this field is empty for a customer, maybe this customer doesn't have this date, Workday will not let your report to run only if you are not checking this checkbox. Why? It'll keep telling you one of the field is in error, one of the field is in error. If you check this checkbox, even if that person has empty credit verification date, Workday is just going to return blank value for them. So you can go back and check why it's coming blank. Is it because the credit verification date is blank for them or something, or your calculation has some issues? But always check this checkbox, because for one field, your report should not be, I will say, into the entire error mode. So this is what this particular thing does.
Okay.
Clicking on OK.
Numeric.
Yeah. There is nothing that you can select to whether to add or subtract. All you can select is whether what you want to add or subtract, year, month, or days. Now it's on you. So suppose you wanted to subtract 5 years, okay, and their date 5 is not here, you can create it. We'll look at it when you're dealing with numerical constants and all. Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
That way you can. Now the next function that we are going to cover here is date difference. Now date difference is basically trying to find either the number of months or the number of years or the number of days between two date fields. Okay. Now these date fields can either be your what do you call, can either be your Workday delivered fields, or you can use your own calculated delivered fields. Okay. So suppose let me give an example of a business process transaction. Okay. There is a business. I want to calculate what is the efficiency of a manager to close a performance review in Workday. Okay, how many days are they ideally taking to close one of their subordinates performance reviews? So suppose a performance review was initiated for them on 1st of January, not 1st of January. The performance review was initiated for the work on 1st of October 2020. Okay, the manager was sent the form to fill in for the employee and send it back to the employee for further discussion. So the initiation date of the business process transaction is 1st of, let me go into the notepad and let me type these things so that we can understand it better. So suppose the initiation date is 1st of, let me do it this way, 1st of Jan 2020. Okay. But the manager took an entire month and some days to complete this process. Okay. So the completion date for this business process transaction for that manager is maybe 12th of November. So it'll show up something like this, 12th of November 2020. So now I'm assessing that on an average, how many days are managers taking to complete performance review. Based on that, maybe the decision will be taking to launch the performance review early, or maybe to launch the performance review later, and things of those sort. Okay. So these are the kind of things I'm trying to assess, just for a metric purpose. You understand? Just to assess the health and make certain decisions. So you can very well find. So maybe the request that comes to you from the talent department to you is that, hey, can you give me a report with a date difference of the initiation and completion date of performance review in the form of months. I want to see it in months, or maybe in the form of days. Let's take it as days. I want to see how many days on an average do the managers in an organization take to complete a performance review. Okay. So for those kind of purposes, we use the increment or decrement date function. Okay. So that's one use case you can apply. Here, what I'm going to do is I want to find the project duration date. This is a financial related fields. I try to stick to finance as much as I can. Oh my God. As much as I can, because I know you mostly get such kind of requests. So I try to build reports which are related to you, and you can use a logic in those.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to build a finance related field where I want to see what is the project duration. Maybe there was a finance project that was started, and I want to find what is the duration in months for that project. So basically duration is what? Start date minus end date. So I'm going to create a date difference field here. This is what I hate about reconnections. Okay, now this is not going to work. I have to shut this entire Workday thing and I have to restart it again. Give me a minute.
Yeah.
I'll just stop sharing for a bit till I don't fix this. Remote server. Can you see my screen now?
Yeah, I can see.
Okay. So yeah, this is where we are. What we are going to do is we are going to create a date difference calculated field to find the project duration, which happens to be the difference between the, I'll call it as CF project duration. Business object. Since I know that project start date and all is built on project BO, but like I showed you earlier, if you don't know which particular BO it is on, always go here, type the name of the field. Maybe don't type the entire thing, just say project start, just type the keywords. Okay, project start, and see what all fields are available and which one do you want to use. Always use it. So these are, see, there's so many project start date fields. Quarter, you have earliest project start date. See which is the one that is suiting your need. Just look at the related action, see what all days are there, like which of them are calculated fields built by someone. So this is a calculated field, which is the one delivered by Workday. So all those kind of things you can see here. Okay. So
Yeah.
always do this reverse engineering. I'm going to do a date difference over here. So I'm just going to select date difference. Yeah, the start date field here has to be project start date because I want to subtract project start date and I want to subtract the end date from it. So this is the one, and I'm gonna, now, like I said, they want to see, there are various ways in which you want to show them. Do they want to see it in years? Do they want to see it in month, or do they want to see it in days? Maybe the preference here is they want to see it in months. So I'm going to select months over here, the format. So if the project started in Jan 2020 and is getting over in March 2021, it's going to show us 15 months. Okay.
Okay.
And always and always, rule of the thumb, select return zero on error, so that if you use this particular report field in a report and either of the date is empty, the entire report is not going into error. Okay, so
Okay.
select this and click on OK. This is how you build the
So if
first. So suppose there are 10 projects coming up in your report, right? You ran it for a company and that company has 10 projects ongoing for them. And for maybe 2 projects, they have not assigned a project end date. So ideally, if you would have not checked that checkbox, whenever you would have tried to run the report, it would have gone in error mode. But since you
for
have
entire
checked,
report.
yeah, for
Okay.
the entire report only, but since now you have checked this checkbox, the report is going to run fine. For those 2 projects, this field is going to come up as blank, the project
Okay.
duration field. Okay,
Okay.
that's how it will be. Then the next and the last function that we are going to do with date today is build date. So these are the only 4 ways to play with date fields. Now,
Mm-hmm.
build date is, like I mentioned earlier, remember that suppose for you, your report is always being run as of 31st of December 2030. I'm going way too far actually. 2025. Okay, suppose that is the date for which your report will always be run. Now, instead of telling the worker to enter that date manually all the time in the report, you remember prompts, right? Where we let
Yeah.
the people enter things on the report while they're running the report. Instead of doing that for the person, why not hard code that particular date in your report as a filter? That the effective date for this report should always be 31st of December 2021. Okay. So for that, you will have to, of course, Workday doesn't deliver specific date fields in Workday. Okay, they will deliver you dates like today, first day of the year, last day of the year, first day of the quarter, last day of the quarter, but they do not deliver you fields, these static date fields like 12, 31, 2020, 2021. They will not be delivered. Those are dates you can build in Workday. My recommendation to you always is that if your field is if you want to use this date field across almost all the reports, build it on a global business object. Okay, so I'm going to show
Okay.
you this. That
Yeah.
is a different ball game altogether. I'll teach you that when I'm building composite report, because that fiscal year is coming from your fiscal schedule. So you need to
Okay.
understand that all your finance projects have their own fiscal schedule. They build a custom schedule. So that fiscal year thing is coming always from a fiscal schedule. Workday is going to ask you, which fiscal schedule are you looking at? So there might be like 10 calendars configured. Then you have to ask the stakeholder that, hey, what do you want to run this report as of? Is it as of current year or current date or prior date? Then you simply choose the current or prior date. But you will, or if there are more than one fiscal schedule configured, ask them that which fiscal schedule should I run this report as of? So those are the things you have to ask the stakeholder. So basically, it's slightly understanding the finance background of it as well. I'm not a finance implementation person, so I really can't shed much light on that. But I
Okay.
will recommend sit with someone in an organization who does these fiscal, I'm saying, workday implementation for finance. Tell them to help you understand all those kind of things. Okay.
When it comes to Workday, they couldn't
Yeah,
relate
that's when you go
anything,
to
and
the
it was
functional person. You have to always find one or two handy contacts. One is security person. You should always know who handles workday security in your organization. You have to
okay.
always work in tandem with them. You cannot work in silo as a reporting consultant, because reporting is what? You're pulling data from your configuration and presenting it to the stakeholder, right? But
Yeah.
who has configured that data is the best person to explain you how that data was configured. So suppose if your client is saying that, hey, give me a debit minus credit amount for this journal line, you have no idea, right? What journal line is, what debit minus credit amount is, right? So you have to
Yeah.
slightly understand what does it mean, where in Workday it is stored. For you to verify the data also you need, right? Where can I see all these kind of data? So always have these contacts handy with you. Go to them, work in tandem with them to build. So that's how you gain experience, and eventually once you will gain experience, one or three reports you'll build on journal line, you'll yourself start understanding things.
They
No, no,
fall.
no, no. These are not. They are all Workday delivered. Rather, these are built-in prompts. You cannot bring it explicitly on a report. When I'll build a composite report, I'll show you how they come up. They
Okay.
all come from the data source of the report. You can never add a field specifically for fiscal year or time period. You have to use a data source that will automatically give you these as filters.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Almost all the data sources in Workday for finance have these prompts. When we'll be building the composite report, I'll show you. Okay.
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 Now the function here is build date. I'm using a global BO because I want this date to be used by other people as well if they want to use it. So I'm going to click on OK. And I'm going to say specific year. So I know that I only want 2021. So I will just simply type and see if there is a specific year that has been created for 2021. Yes, we have it. So I want specific year. Many a times you can extract a year. So suppose I was building a date field from which I wanted to extract the year from the higher date. Then I would have used this option. I would have just said higher date over here, but for higher date to come, my business object should have been worker. And see, it's not coming here. Reason because I'm using a global BO. Had I been using a worker BO, I would have easily got. So that's how, if you want to extract a year from your already existing field, you can do that using this extract date. Specific month, I want to extract the month from what do we say? I want the month to be December all the time. So I'm going to go here and I'm going to click on global fields. It's going to show me only numeric fields. I'm going to select the day, number 12 over here because I only want December to be shown up as the month, and specific day. I want the report to be run as of 31st of December. So I'm just going to say, I'm going to look if there is a number 31 already configured here. So I'm just going to go here and I'm going to look for the number 31 and see if it's here by any chance. Yeah, here it is. So I'm just going to select 31 and I'm done. Again, check this checkbox, return blank date on error. We are done.
Okay.
But I also want to show you something. There is one more calculation I want to do for you because that will extract these fields from what do you call as already existing field. So I'll show you how to do that. This particular field that I am building is called as, just a second. This is really going to extract your first day of the report effective month. Okay. Now, first day of the report effective month is basically uh, so I suppose I have ran 10 reports. Okay, some report was run on on 1st of April, some was run on 3rd of April, some was run on 7th of April. I only want to see what the entire I want to see what was the first day of all these 5 reports based on their report effective date. So report effective date is basically the effective date on which the report was run. Either it's manually entered by the person who's running it, or if you don't give that option to the person, then Workday assumes it to be the current date. So suppose if I'm running a report as of now, the report effective date will become 19th of April 2021. That's all.
Yeah.
But if I give the option to the end user to enter this date, then they can run the report as of 1st of December 2020. They can run the report as of any date that they want to run. Okay. So I want to make a field which gives me the first day of the report effective month. The date format should be like this. So suppose the report effective date always is in the format like DDYYY, right? Now they want to see it as 01, sorry, month will be the same, whichever they are running. It should always be the first day of the report. So this is the date they would like to see. So suppose if someone has run the report on 4th of April 2021, the date field that I'm going to build is always going to give them 1st of April 2021, because they always want the date to be shown as first day of the report effective date. Okay, you're getting to understand what exactly I'm trying to build? Yeah. So let me just go here, create a calculated field, name it as first day of the report effective month. The business object here, again, report effective date is a global field. Had it built on a particular business object, I would have used that business object. But since it's a global field, I'm using a global BO. Again, that means you're opening this particular field to be used on all the reports, irrespective of the business object. And the calculation I'm doing is build date over here. Same function, because I'm just changing the I'm building a date out of an already existing date field, right? Here earlier I was building a date irrespective. It was not being extracted from any existing date field. That was a constant that I was building. Here I have to build a date field from an already existing. So I'm not going to say specific year. I'm going to extract the year. I want the year to be same as report effective dates. Thus, I'm just going to say the year should always be pulled from the report effective date. So this is a field. I'm just going to say pull the year of the report effective date. Month should also be the same as the report effective date. My month in this particular date field should always be pulled from the report effective date. So again, I'm going to type the same here. But my day should not be pulled from the report effective date. If you will look at the notepad, the day should always be first of the month, right?
Yeah.
So I'm going to make it specific day. Very well said. I'm just going to type the number 1. And you will see the digit 1 comes over here, which will automatically make first day of the month. Return blank date on error, and you are good to go. So that's how, if you want the year or month to be pulled from a already existing date field, you will follow this route. If you want to make it a date constant, irrespective of whichever field, then you will use these specific years. Okay?
Yeah. Okay.
So we are done with all the date calculations for today.